Hello, my friends. Let's talk about joint attention. I recently had somebody pop into my DMs and ask for a video and a little bit maybe of a tutorial on joint attention. And so I just want to start by saying joint attention is one of my most favorite things to work on. And I think that's what makes me really excited about being a preschool speech language pathologist, because I do have a lot of students that are working on joint attention. So let's start with just the definition, and I'm going to give you like the Marie version of everything, so that way, you know, I've taken what I've learned in grad school and taken Ash's definition, and I've kind of, you know, put them into my own words. Basically, to me, joint attention is when you share an interaction with a child or with another person that is about something else. So I think of it, and I think this is kind of the common way that it's described, it's like a triangle, where if I'm talking to you, we're sharing a thought or an idea or anything about this dinosaur, right? Look at the dinosaur. Did you just look at it? Yeah, that's joint attention, because then we looked back at each other when I started talking. All right, so with students that, especially when, you know, developmentally we're looking at a student maybe needing to build their social communication and their engagement with others, we want to look at their joint attention skills, because if they're having a difficult time maintaining that attention with you, me, and the dinosaur, or let's say I'm having a difficult time maintaining the attention with you and the dinosaur, because we just added a fourth, we don't need a fourth, then we need to back up and we need to start working on building that ability to have that common attention on something, but still be able to maintain an interaction together, right? Does that kind of make sense? So, you know, maybe it looks like your student or your child is only attending to the dinosaur, you know, and playing with the dinosaur, and you call the student's name, you say their name trying to get their attention, saying, look up, and it's not happening. Or maybe you're saying, look. No, they're looking at you, or they're looking at something else, right? So we want to be able to just get that ability, even if it's for a split second. We want to work on getting that joint attention, that triangle, the magical triangle. So I'm going to go over a couple of ways and tips, I guess, that I have for you when working on joint attention. But I want to start with saying this. You need to remember, when you're working on joint attention, first and foremost, you are at the child's level. So if I'm up here, okay, can you see me? I'm going to go out of it. I'm really going to mess this up for you, huh? If I'm standing up straight, you know, and my preschoolers, are they as tall as me? No. So if I'm standing up and I'm looking down and I'm talking to them, trying to get their attention, already I'm talking down to them. Not okay. But it's not easy. It's not as easy for them to look up, maybe, or they, you know, it's not, the awareness isn't quite there to look up at a speaker. So why not get on their level? Let them know you're there, you're listening. You know, it's called face-to-face. Get that face-to-face interaction. Don't be up here. Another thing that I want to remind you of is celebrate the small milestones. That's what I was saying earlier, just a split second. Why not? Because you start small and you build off of that, and you get excited about even the small things. I think that's why I like preschool. But you want to make sure that you aren't, you know, forcing too much interaction. You don't want to overwhelm your little ones. You want to make sure that you're not, you know, if you've ever heard of demands versus capacity, you don't want to put too many demands on what they're capable of doing at that time. Yes, we want to make sure we're challenging our students. But when it comes to engagement, my biggest tip for you, when it comes to joint attention, my biggest tip for you, find a way to make it enjoyable. When it's not enjoyable, they're not going to want to do it. If something's not enjoyable for you, are you probably less likely to want to do it? So just keep those things in mind. Some other things to keep in mind when you're working on joint attention, which I have handouts over at thanksmorris.com. You can actually find some SLP freebies, and these handouts are there, you know, to kind of either hang in your speech room or your classroom or your office, however you want to do it. That have a observe, wait, and listen. So our owl reminders, our rock reminders, right? Oh my gosh, I just blinked. I just remembered keep the fun going. Anyways, rock, the 4 I's, the 4 S's, all those great things that are basically helping us use skills and techniques that we've learned in grad school in the speech therapy setting. Those are all there. So observe, wait, and listen basically means you want to observe what the child is doing. So when you're face to face, let's say you're just getting started, you've got a goal for joint attention and you're ready to go, you've got your dinosaur. Start slow. Give yourself a break, first of all. I know sometimes in speech, when you're ready, when you feel like everything's set up, you're like, yeah, we're gonna do this. And I think sometimes as like real go-getter character types, a lot of us speech pathologists are, we sometimes forget to take that step back. And observe, wait, and listen it's so important. It's so important to take that step back. So let's say, I bring my little guy into the speech room. We're working on joint attention today. We're going to get this. Or maybe I have my interactive. I don't have it here, but I have this awesome train that you push a button to turn it on. And then it has balls. Have you seen it? It's like a train chase thing. And the balls go around and around. It makes music and then you can stop it. It's great for cause and effect, but it's also great for withholding because you have to keep putting balls in the top to make it go. Maybe you've got your wind-up toys, like you're ready for them to look at you to wind it up more. If you don't observe their, how they're coming in and just give them a second to warm up, give them a second to lead and then you follow their lead with whatever they want to do. You might set yourself up for disappointment. I'm not saying you will. I'm saying maybe you'll have that situation where you've got your dinosaur and that's what's going to work, and it does. But it may not. And I just don't want you to get too down on the joint attention work because it's beautiful. And when you really work at it, it might take weeks, it might take a month, and that's okay. Sometimes 6 weeks. But then you have a child look at you and initiate a game of chase just with their facial expression, and then you've got a whole interaction going on, a back and forth reciprocity, and it's worth it. Yes, that's a true story. It really happened to me. But when we use OWL, observe, wait, and listen, we're face to face, we're following their lead when we observe, I'm using notes, and we're letting a child know they're heard. Okay, those are the 3 most important things you can do to set yourself up for success in a session. Is that always going to work by just using those 3 strategies? No. I'll tell you right now, no. But it's a great way to set up that inviting environment and giving the child control by following their lead. It's so important when you're working on this skill. Waiting. So again, you're not jumping the gun. You're waiting, you're giving them a chance to take a turn. I think that's important because I always say wait 5 seconds. Sometimes, again, you prompt a child, look, and you might think, now that was really fast, but you might think you waited, 5 seconds. Let me show you how long 5 true seconds are. Look at dinosaur. Look again, or whatever. Look again. But did you see that was so uncomfortable for me? That was so long to look at a camera. But it's so important because you might jump the gun and they were about to respond. Then you just overloaded their capacity with another demand. So you just have to give it time. You have to be patient with yourself, with the child. Give them time to think and respond. So in that 5 seconds, and maybe longer, you know your child better than I know them. It might be longer, and that's okay. You might say something, they might run around the room, come back, and then do it. Has happened. And you're giving them time to explore and discover. So if you're trying to work on joint attention with a really cool cause and effect toy that makes music, first they need to know what it does, right? If you're going to try and work on joint attention by building blocks and knocking them down and having the child look, they need to see that you build them up to knock them down, right? Whoops. Another one I really love is doing joint attention with books. I think this is a great way. One, you're building those pre-literacy skills of working on turning pages and looking at the front cover. But if you have an interactive book like this where you push a button, what was that? Then they hear the noise, you hear the noise, you can have a chance to look at each other, and there's some joint attention right there. Maybe there's a change of affect because it's so exciting or it's surprising. Oh, by the way, another really great joint attention toy, a jack-in-the-box. You won't thank me for this, speech pathologists, because they scare me and they might scare you, but they're great for reinforcement and for joint attention. Anyways, for that surprise factor, the surprise factor. So having a book, because then there's more trials for this because the pages are different and they want to see what's on the next page, but they need time to explore it. They need to feel that this is a different texture. They need to see that they can push it and make the noise, not just you. So make sure that you're waiting and you're giving that time. And then the the L in owl stands for listening. The child talks and you attend is what this is basically saying. Now, talking may not be what's happening, but maybe they're changing their facial expression. Maybe they're seeking some kind of sensory input. You're listening or you're understanding what they need. And that's going to help, again, build that safe environment, and it's going to help start the enjoyment of that engagement piece. Does that make sense? You can't answer me, but I hope that makes sense. In that listening part, you're showing respect for the child's expression of their thoughts, their needs, what they like, what they don't like. And then you're motivating them to continue the conversation. It's not just you in there, right? It's about the child. I mean, really what we do, it's about our clients. And so when you are giving them that opportunity to respond or to say the first thing, give the first expression, it's so motivating. It's so encouraging. And it makes it more fun and more enjoyable. I always say, if all they do is smile in a speech session, I'm happy because I want to see that enjoyment. And then I always say owl plus R. I was taught that you want to give a reason. You want to give a reason to communicate. So maybe they really love dinosaur. So maybe dinosaur is going to be right here where they can see him, but he's kind of out of reach or something. But maybe I pull out elephant first because I want to see if they'll reach for dinosaur. And right there, that's it. That's what I wanted. And they reach for dinosaur and I pull dinosaur up to my face. Oh yeah, really great for joint attention. Hold everything by your face. Yep. It sounds so simple, but it's so effective. But you change that and you wait. You see what happens. You also want to adapt to their daily routines and work on joint attention in daily routines. So whether it's bath time, splashing water together, blowing bubbles during outside play is really great for joint attention, or inside play. During meal times and giving a reason to communicate during meal times. So maybe, okay, you're going to have to pretend these are Cheerios, guys. Use your imaginations. But maybe these are all different, they're Cheerios, and you're withholding them for the child to stick out their hand and request. Maybe you put them by your face so the child might start looking at you and you can have a certain affect on your face that's exciting and enticing. Those are my starting tips for joint attention. Now, once you start to get that more solid joint attention, don't stop. Keep it going. Keep things consistent. So if you bring Johnny in and for 2 weeks straight he's been, a solid minute of joint attention, keep doing what you're doing, but add in little nuances, add in novel activities, but keep the strategies that are working in place because you want to build that joint attention. One thing that's really been effective for me as a speech pathologist, bring in the peers. Yeah, joint attention, it's great to work on. Sometimes it's easier to work on an individual level, but I will tell you, if you've got peers, 1 or 2 in your speech room, or if you're just pushing into a classroom to model these things with peers, so effective. So maybe we are playing with dinosaur. I like how this dinosaur is just taking over this whole video. But you have a peer in the room and maybe peer is holding the dinosaur and you're having, the little friend be the one that does some vocalizations for imitation or does the exciting noises or is looking at the book with the child and you're kind of just the observer, or maybe you're softly guiding the peer on what to do. But when I work on, especially with cause and effect toys, I push into the classroom. I have my joint attention kiddo and their peer right there, and I'm having them play together and kind of coaching the child, the peer that's I've buddied the other child up with. I'm having him, I'm telling him, hold it by your mouth. See what he does. During snack time, I might have the peer, I might, be practicing with the food, right? And adapting that for requesting. And I might be withholding the snack from both the peer and the child, because then I can, have the peer be modeling that great language. It's not necessarily always a joint attention thing, obviously, it's just for modeling language. But again, sometimes the peers are they're more exciting for the little ones because they're kids that are their size. They sound like them, they look like them, and it's more fun with your friends. There's a couple other things I want to make sure that you keep in mind. All the strategies like the owl that I talked about, those are handouts you can find on my website. So I definitely encourage you to go look over there. There's the 4 eyes. So include the child's interests. Again, let them have some control, right? Let them feel like it's all about them, because it is. It is. Interpret all their communication attempts. Again, doesn't mean if it's just a vocalization that you interpret. You're interpreting their facial expressions, their head turns, their arms go up, anything. Interpret it as communication and give them a chance to do those things, right? We're waiting, we're listening. Imitate what they do. If they take the dinosaur out of your hand and hold it up to their mouth, pull up another animal and hold it up to your mouth. Remember my rule of 2, always have 2 things. Intrude in solitary play. Now this is huge for joint attention. This is like right when you're starting to work on it. The child has dinosaur and is over by themselves. You go over there with another dinosaur and you get face to face. And you start doing weird things with your dinosaur. You're putting it on your head, you're putting it on your legs, you're hiding their dinosaur. Maybe they want your dinosaur and they try to take it. So, then you can say, oh, you want my dinosaur. You want dinosaur. And you can make little games out of it. Another thing too is when you're working on joint attention, this is kind of how I'm going to end this. Again, there's way more strategies. You can find those all on my website, but I want to end this with saying there are lots of ways to incorporate people games. And by people games, I mean games that we play together that maybe are only including, our hands, like peekaboo. Peekaboo is great for joint attention. Another one, patty cake. One of my favorite ones, like I mentioned earlier, a game of chase. And I'll end this with a fun story about my little guy. So I had a 3-year-old in preschool last year who came in with limited to no joint attention skills. It was really hard to get his buy-in with the activities I presented in speech. It definitely went, a lot to following his lead and kind of doing a lot of observation, a lot of imitation of cause and effect and things like that. We built this really great relationship just based off of me doing a lot of observing, a lot of waiting, a lot of listening, a lot of interpreting his communication attempts and intrusion, but in a gentle way. I wasn't forcing anything on him, but I would be, I would make sure I was present. I was at his level. I was face to face with him. And one day in speech, he was, for the first time I'd seen him really protesting the activity, but not protesting, there weren't any negative behaviors. He just kept getting up and walking away from the same activity that he loved to do. And I, was like, okay, let's see where he goes. So he sat behind my therapy table. We always did we were playing on the carpet. It was never at a table, which is very rare when you're working on joint attention, in my opinion. I think you should be, doing some kind of play-based activities. And he looked at me, and then he looked at my bookshelf, because the bookshelf was in a way kind of like a partition wall that was in between the speech area and my desk. And he looked at the bookshelf and he looked back at me and he smirked, and I'd never seen him do that before. Then he got up and ran behind the bookshelf and giggled. And I was like, what the heck just happened? He's never done this before. So I went over and he was giggling up against the wall, come get me. And he looked at me. So I kind of fast-paced walked towards him with my hands I'm gonna tickle you. And he waited for me. And so I gave him a little tickle. And then he looked up at me again. And then he looked away and looked up at me and then ran the other way. So he initiated this game of chase with me. Which was so cool. And that was the first time I really saw him hone in on that joint attention. And from there I knew, okay, we can build so much on this. But again, we were building from the get-go. It's just sometimes it takes a little while. Another situation with a little guy, and this is where you can really model that peer interaction being such a motivator for joint attention. I had a little guy who like didn't want anything to do with anybody when he started in preschool. And like you would say, come eat snack with your friends, and he would just be like, no, I don't want to. He wanted to eat snack by himself. He wanted to play blocks by himself. He wanted to play with his train by himself. And one day I went into the room and he was like kind of off in the corner during a more like free structured time in the classroom. And so I had a blanket because I was going to try and initiate a game of peekaboo with him. And so he starts playing it with me, but he was kind of like, he wasn't all that into it. He played it. He thought it was funny, but he was like, at the same time, kept kind of like looking around like, okay, I'm over this lady. Well, then one of the little girls came over and she goes, I want to play. And so I said, perfect. So she started doing it with him. And then all the class like started to line up because they all wanted to turn to peekaboo with him. Like 15 minutes of that. 15 minutes of a people game, of that joint attention. And you know, it's hard because sometimes you're like, well, is it joint attention? Is it not? In my mind, yes, it was, because he anticipated that blanket going up and then it coming down, and then we needed to find it to get it because it would drop to the floor. And then it was like a kind of, you know, oh, are you going to get it? Am I going to get it? Kind of thing. It was amazing. And the peers motivated him way more than I was. So that was a really good example of that. And so if you're having a struggle with joint attention, this video is really long now, but if you're having that struggle with joint attention, I definitely recommend you thinking about who you can buddy the child up with to maybe work on it, and you can be the facilitator. That's always a great moment for you as a speech pathologist to realize how to facilitate the communication between peers, even at a young age, is possible. I know sometimes you get into middle school and you're definitely working on that in your social groups. So it starts in preschool. All right, friends, my legs are falling asleep. I should go eat lunch. This was a lengthy video into joint attention, but I hope it helped. If you ever, and this video, like I said, it was asked, a question was asked and I said, yeah, I'll do a video about it. If you ever have anything you want to see a video on, I love getting suggestions. I love knowing what you guys want more of. I love knowing, you know, what I can help you with. And so please send me questions on Instagram or in my email. You can visit my website, thanksmorris.com, where you can quickly contact me. And I am so happy to add them to my list. I love doing that stuff. So again, find me, send me questions. If you have any questions about joint attention that I didn't cover, if you know, because I feel like this might have been a little bit all over the place just because I love it so much and I get so passionate and get off on tangents, send me a question about joint attention. We can talk and maybe I can clear some of this stuff up for you. All right, friends. Thank you all. I will talk to you next time. Bye.